How many times has it happened to you that you have thought you've said something to someone and they deny it? The number of times I've said to my partner, this is happening, or we're going out this evening, do you remember, this is booked? And the partner's turned around to me and said, no, you didn't. Then that can just escalate into such a huge row, because you're convinced, I was convinced that I'd said it, I'd told him, but he was convinced that I hadn't. And so we got into this real wrangle. But there could be a misunderstanding on either side, couldn't it, really? Firstly, did I say it, or did I think I said it? The number of times I thought I had said something to somebody, but I'd only said it in my head. And I hadn't really said it. And when I thought back, I thought, I knew it was on the tip of my tongue to say, I'm going to tell you this, I need to tell you this. But actually, I hadn't got round to doing it. It was in my head. I must say that. I must tell whoever it is. I must tell them that that's happening. I must remind them or mention the fact that we've got a date. We're going to my mother's, we're going to my sister's, we're going wherever. And I hadn't said it. And sometimes the other person may not hear it, or I think, or I've said something, but they've been distracted and they haven't heard something at all. So I've thought I need to do something about it. You know, I thought, well, I've actually told you this, but I haven't really heard it. The other person hasn't heard it at all. They may have been distracted doing something else completely. So I think it's could be a real situation where we just are I think it's there's just that situation where we think we've told somebody, or they may have been distracted. And that can just cause so many huge rows and arguments, and there isn't any point in continuing those rows. It's so much easier to turn around to your partner and say, I'm really sorry, I thought I told you. It's so much easier to say, you know, maybe you told me and I've forgotten, rather than it turning into a huge row. And then how can we resolve it? How can we actually get over this? If it is an arrangement, appointment, something that one of you's arranged and the other one's forgotten, and maybe they've made other alternative arrangements, or they've just forgotten, then how are you going to deal with that? How can you resolve it? Because that's the whole point, isn't it? It's much easier to say, I'm really sorry, I misunderstood you, I didn't hear you, maybe I've forgotten. How can we get over this? How can we move on from it? There are other times when I've misunderstood someone completely. What they've said to me, I have misunderstood their words and got completely the wrong end of the stick. Now, often you can laugh about it and say, I thought you said, but actually it wasn't. But there are times that can be quite upsetting, because we do believe somebody said something and we misunderstood the other person, and that can cause a row too. So why do we get into that situation when we believe we said something and the other person hasn't actually said it, or they've misunderstood, or we just get into that wrangle about those misunderstandings? I think sometimes it's because we feel vulnerable. We feel that we thought we heard something and didn't, or we thought we told somebody and we didn't, and that affects us. That's something about us as a person. That's something about us feeling that vulnerability. I failed, I've got it wrong, and that can feel quite uncomfortable at times if we feel that we misunderstood, or we haven't said something, or we've misheard, or we've forgotten. I guess that's more what it's about, isn't it? That we just feel that vulnerability. I got it wrong. So what does getting it wrong mean? Well, we all get things wrong at times. And if we feel secure in ourselves and in our relationship, then it doesn't feel so bad. We can say, oh gosh, yeah, did it wrong. But if we don't feel secure in ourselves, if we don't have a lot of confidence, if we don't, if we feel uncomfortable, or we're worried about what the other person's going to say, then we often defend ourselves and say, no, I didn't get it wrong. I didn't get it wrong. It's okay. Or maybe it's a case of when you've admitted that you've got it wrong, then you get judged. You get told, well, you weren't listening, or you get told, well, you're useless. Oh, what's the point? I keep telling you things and you just don't bother. That can be another situation where we feel really vulnerable in that kind of situation. You know, we feel really vulnerable. So really question yourself what happens for you when you think you've misheard, or you think you've told somebody something. Is it about the other person, or is it really you? Is it something that you've admitting your vulnerability? Is it about that sense that you're not good enough, or you're going to get it in the neck? And really, that's horrid if we feel that we've misunderstood, if somebody's going to jump on us and tell us that we're useless. That's not a nice thing to do, is it? If we really care about someone, we don't put them down. We forgive them and say, oh, you've forgotten, I'm really hurt, or I'm upset, or I feel now that I'm going to let somebody down, or whatever that thing is. But you don't have to actually dive on the other person and have a go at them. We all make mistakes and we all misunderstand things. So I'd urge you to be kinder to each other, kinder to everybody, and say, okay, I screwed up there. I'm sorry. What does it mean? It's not as if the world is going to come to an end tomorrow, and you have got more at risk in that friendship, that relationship, losing that person, than you have on misunderstanding